Are you ready to collect one of the strongest members of the Kamabuka Club? Here's your look at the brand new McFarlane Toys Demon Slayer Zenitsu Agatsuma. Zenitsu Agatsuma joins the Demon Slayer Corps at the same time as Tanjiro. He has an acute sense of hearing and can identify sounds made by other people and demons. He unfortunately has zero confidence in himself and often talks self-depreciatingly. However, when he is scared to death, he falls asleep and his personality changes to a sharp-minded person. This 7-inch scale of Zenitsu figure is designed by McFarlane's signature ultra-articulation with up to 22 moving parts for a full range of posing. Now, we are going to get down to the details and the articulation of Agatsuma in a second, but first, though, I'd like to thank the folks over at McFarlane Toys. Yes, that did provide the sample of the brand new Demon Slayer Zenitsu Agatsuma that we could have a look in this review. Grabbing the tape measure now to see how tall the figure stands. Right to the very top of the head, you're getting a figure that's about 6 inches in height, or Zenitsu is going to be about 15 centimeters tall. While Zenitsu does not come included with a trading card, he does, however, come included with a display stand. The stand itself is the exact same as the one that we always get from the DC Multiverse line, but what's different, though, is printed down below is the Demon Slayer logo. Off to the corner of that, in a neighboring village, there's one standalone peg that can plug into the bottom side of Agatsuma's feet. We're going to probably bring this back in a second. Probably a little later, I would imagine, in final looks. The figure also comes included as well with a Nichiren sword. The Nichiren sword does have some nice detailing done to the hilt. You can see it's alternating colors of white with a little bit of accents added in there as well of yellow. The end of the hilt is painted also in yellow, and the guard does have also that same matching yellow. I do like the way as well that they've added some additional detail work, as small as this actually may be, into the actual blade of the Nichiren sword. We're going to go ahead then take the sword. It does fit well into the hands. Either one of the hands are actually fine for this. Just simply slide the sword in place. And Zenitsu then has the means to hold the sword. There is no other place to store the sword if it's not going to be in Zenitsu's hands. So obviously there's either the option of obviously displaying it in the hand or just displaying it out of the hand. So profound. The figure also then comes included with a bunch of closed fists. And by a bunch, I mean there's a pair of closed fists that you can then swap out from the existing hands that are in the forearms right now of Agatsuma, and simply just change them out with these. I prefer myself to have both hands with gripping options available. You can also as well bend the elbows, although the elbows on this figure are a little on the more tighter side, and you actually have the means. Let's just go ahead and take the sword here, slide it in from one side of the street, and then we'll cross the street then to the other side. Slide it in first, there we go. Slide in then second, there we go, or almost there. And you can actually have the figure holding the sword with both the hands. It's a little harder to pull off, mind you, but it does succeed by the fact that they did put the hinge joint. It seems only to be a single hinge joint in Zenitsu's elbows, but it's more than enough to at least accommodate double-wielding, double-hand-holding sword. Let's get that out of the hands right now and put that to the side, getting a closer look now at Zenitsu. A nice looking figure overall. One thing that does work well for this figure is the amount of color that they put to the palette. Not only do you have the more traditional colors of the yellow, but as it gets closer down to the earlobes, you can see they've added some additional brown there as well. Head sculpt is quite good on this one, a very neutral expression. I'm sure at some point we are going to be getting other versions of Agatsuma, maybe perhaps one that figure's falling asleep. Some darker colors happen here underneath the robe, mostly made of only just the browns. It doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of extra paint that's been applied here, but one thing I do really like is the way they've painted the robe. The robe itself, like the hair, starts pretty light up on the shoulder area, but as it gets progressively to the ends of the sleeves and progressively to the bottom of the jacket, you can see it transitions nice to kind of a golden yellow, and then it gets down to a caramel color yellow. In addition to that, you can see as well there's some triangle points there that look like tiny little white Doritos sort of sprinkled across the jacket. The jacket itself is a fairly soft plastic. For obvious reasons, though, the arm area of Zenitsu is going to be more of a harder plastic, but it's overall a nice looking figure. I do like the little white accents that they've added here to the belt. They've taken the time to paint the silver there on the front snaps, and there is also, again, the top to the pocket, and the color piece is all well painted. It doesn't seem to be any real issues when it comes to the paint. There's no bleed, there's no issues, certainly even down below when we get to the lower legs. Places like this could be maybe problematic when it comes to the paint, but again, very well painted from McFarlane's skilled artists. Of course, there are undersides, on the undersides, I should say, of the feet of Zenitsu, there are peg holes, so of course you can use then the display stand if you want to plug that in place, and there is some additional toe articulation, which I guess is technically part of the articulation for the figure. So let's go back to the head, and we'll run through the articulation for Zenitsu Agatsuma. Starting first with the head sculpt, it is on a ball joint, so it does allow the head to rotate all the way around. You can have the head looking down, quite far in fact, and you can have the head looking up, a lot higher than expected. You can also rock the head back and forth as well. For the shoulders were a lot easier to move than I thought they would be. You can easily rotate the arms all the way around. There is a kind of a little bit of a swivel at the top, but mostly it's all pegged in place by a ball and hinge joint. There is a single hinge only, sadly, on the wrist, or I should say on the elbows, but at least it allows the forearms to rotate back and forth. If anything is the most limited when it comes to the articulation here on the figure, I would say it's more in the elbow than anything else. Everything else seems to be pretty good on articulation. Hands rotate all the way around. You can also hinge them also back and forth as well. The upper torso is on a very generous ball joint. As well to that, further down around the abdomen area, there's a secondary abdomen joint. So you can rotate it quite easily here for Agatsuma. For the legs, they do split out, and they seem to be relying on ratcheted joints. So not only can they move and guaranteeing, ensuring longevity of these tight joints, but it also will make quite a very loud sound when you are rotating the legs outward. You can take the legs and move them forward and move them back. By moving them forward, you can kind of see the way they've used the softer plastic down below to conceal the joint, but it doesn't have, again, that diaper look that sometimes figures tend to have when they use the softer plastic down below from like the waist down. There is no knee articulation in the sense that it would normally have bent here, but what they have done is they've actually put a hinge joint that's just below where the bottom of the pants sort of bunch up. So it's a nice way to kind of conceal the joint. You can see it more so obviously from the side, but you don't see it as much here from the front. But there is at least knee articulation, just not in the sense that you would imagine. For the articulation here for the ankles, they move up and down this way. You can also rock them back and forth this way, and you can also hinge the feet right there at the toes. I know we've already talked about that point. All in all, nice looking figure. It doesn't really have much in the way of accessories. I mean, other than really just the Nichiren sword. And then again, that display stand. Oh, of course, and then some swapped out hands. That's really the only thing that comes included with Zenitsu Agatsuma. But overall, again, nice looking figure. McFarlane's team has done not only a great job here for Zenitsu, but they've also released other Demon Slayer figures that we will be looking at in upcoming reviews. If you are a big fan of Demon Slayer and a big fan of Zenitsu, this is a great figure to be picking up and adding to your collection. With the Nichiren sword attached now to both the hands and the foot peg very lodged onto the underside of Agatsuma's feet, I've got the figure now ready to be displayed on the shelf right after this review is finished shooting. One thing I really like about this figure is the handling of the paints. The colors have transitioned yellow, starting with the darker color down below at the base of the jacket and working more to a lighter, sunnier yellow at the very top. Does work very well for this figure. In fact, like the paint overall is done sharp, clean, and there doesn't seem to be any real paint problems at all when it comes to the figure. Zenitsu has some pretty decent articulation where you would expect articulation to be. I suppose if anything, Zenitsu's one articulation flaw is the fact that it only has a single hinge in the elbow. But judging by the size of the sleeves that they sculpted onto the figure in the first place, I can't imagine that they would have been able to put a double hinge joint in the elbow. And still, with the elbow only being relegated to a single hinge, Zenitsu still has the means to hold the Nichiren sword in both the hands. The sword itself, one thing I didn't actually mention in this review, I just noticed now that I've got the blade facing the wrong way, but one thing I didn't also notice to mention in this review was that the sword came pretty loose out of the pack in, well, a pretty warped state. I had to heat it actually in hot water, and I may even have to take another bath, not myself, but the sword that comes included with Agatsuma, just to maybe straighten the sword a little bit more than what it is right now. It's a pretty soft material that they use for the blade for the sword, but all in all, a nice looking figure of Zenitsu Agatsuma. Are you a big fan of Demon Slayer? Let me know down below in the comment section. Is this a figure you could see yourselves picking up and adding it to your collection? Once again, a big thank you to the folks over at McFarlane Toys that did provide this sample of the brand new Demon Slayer Zenitsu Agatsuma that we could have a look at in this review. Speaking of reviews, if you guys just enjoyed if you enjoyed the one that you just finished watching, how about you hit it with a like? And how about if you are new to this channel, you're enjoying the content you guys are seeing, and you certainly would like to see some more Demon Slayer stuff, then make sure you hit the subscribe button down below and that you're also turning on the bell notification. Yeah, I know. Why do we always have to turn on the bell notification? It's just to ensure that you're getting those reminders every single time a new video posts. In fact, just recently, I've got a couple of commenters, people commenting in recent videos. Hey, dude, I didn't realize you were making content. I've been making content this whole time. My friends, my colleagues. Make sure that you're not missing out on anything that comes to this channel on a regular basis by, again, turning on the bell notification. It's definitely going to be a lot more Demon Slayer reviews coming your way. So as always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.